This episode of Shaun of the South is brought to you by Case Knives, a tradition of my family dating back to my granddaddy, the fisherman, the woodcarver, and the Southern Baptist, who always said the best cure for idle hands is to build something, so keep your hands sharp with a Case knife.
Here you are listening to Shaun of the South, and I'm your host this evening, Sean Dietrich, and man, we got a great show lined up ahead of here, coming to you live via the podcast airwaves and the radio waves all over this fine nation. This good group of folks you see behind me here fixing to play music for you tonight is Mile 12, everybody, Mile 12. This portion of our program is brought to you by visitnorthalabama.org, the Mountain Lakes Tourist Association. Visit the 16 North Alabama counties and make this state what it is. The North Alabama Hallelujah Trail, for instance, features 32 churches that are at least 100 years old, standing on their original sites, still holding services, and are accessible to the public. Now, these are the portrait of North Alabama's history and tell the remarkable story of early Alabamans from the early days. You can wind through 16 counties, and the churches that you will see were the churches that were selected during an intensive 2-year scientific research process, which included testing the walls with specialized equipment to detect whether or not actual shouting had taken place inside. See the white painted timber frame church that is St. John's Episcopal Church in Tuscumbia, built in 1855, or visit Mount Pleasant Methodist Church and see aged white wood and square nail and wood paved construction. Or visit my particular favorite, Pine Torch Church, a tiny little primitive log cabin in Bankhead National Forest built from the poplar trees in 1850. Pine Torch Church still holds church service every Sunday at 10 a.m. Be there or be square. So visit the trail of churches and sit in a pew or two and remember your fundamentalist pioneers who taught you how to sing good songs, believe in things, and how to feel very guilty for dancing at wedding receptions. Whatever you do, you can do it better in North Alabama. So visit northalabama.org or hashtag VisitNorthAL. Now let's have another tune here from Mile 12, everybody. Mile 12.
Dream about it.
We're going to read you a little bit of our mail this evening, sent in to us from listeners all over this fine nation who had nothing better to do than to put pen to paper or to tap out an email and send us something telling us about life insurance premiums dropping below average so that we can all save a whole lot of money, or about new tax laws this year, or asking us to cease and desist broadcast immediately under threat of legal action. Our first letter comes from John Howell, Dahlonega, Georgia. Sean, had a friend who told me to listen to your show. And at first I was skeptical because I'm not a bluegrass fan and I'm really more of a rocker. And there was a lot of bluegrass on your show. But the good news is it's growing on me. Somehow I think I'm finally crossing over to the dark side and enjoying bluegrass. I just want to tell you about it. Well, dear John, thanks for the kind words. Thank you for taking the time to tell me that. Crystal Webb, Little Rock, Arkansas. I had a student in my Sunday school class tell me that he had found a frog outside in the woods, and he kept it and he named it, and everything that he was interested in was about this frog. And so he was really interested in showing it to someone. So he offered to bring it to school that Sunday. And so I agreed, probably shouldn't have, but I was just thinking he would bring a shoebox or something small and introduce the frog to everybody. But I was wrong. He ended up bringing in a huge aquarium with all his frogs that he kept in it. And he had written a story to go with each frog that was in his aquarium, and how they were born, and where they came from, and what their hobbies were. Sean, he did a 30-minute presentation in my Sunday school class all about his frogs, and it was so entertaining. It was so entertaining that we never even got to my lesson for that day, and I just thought to myself the whole time, Sean is going to love this. We have another little storyteller on our hands. Well, dear Crystal, tell that kid from somebody who knows a thing or two about the stage of life he's in, do not kiss any of those frogs. Warts are a very real thing. Ask me how I know this. Sharon Hyatt, Trussville, Alabama. Sean, I'm an aspiring songwriter. I'd like to call myself a songwriter one day, but I'm not there yet. But I write almost every morning so that I can get better at my craft writing songs. I especially love songs that sound like the old songs our great-great-grandparents used to sing. You know the kind. I guess you'd call them folk songs. Anyway, I just wanted to share a few lyrics with you of a song I wrote called Bless That Dog. Bless That Dog by Sharon Hyatt. She runs like a horse and howls like a train. She's mud and hair and spit. But she's a girl who made me smile when she tore out after that jackrabbit. Bless that good old dog. Bless that good old dog. Her name is my name too. Bless that good old dog, the one God sent to bless good old me and good old you. Oh man, dear Sharon, bless good old you, and thank you for that. I'll have to sing that to my dogs when they're trying to fall asleep at night. Robert Crocker, New York City, New York. Sean, I live in the city. My life is always moving fast, and there's never a moment when it stops. Even lunchtime in New York is an experience you will never forget. You stand at a counter and you order food, and they throw your food at you practically, and then you stand at one of those counters along the wall to eat. And simultaneously, you eat and check your phone at the same time, just like everybody else does. That's how it works. And your food never really totally digests because you're too busy looking at Facebook. But I'm closing my eyes today, walking through the city and listening to your show. And the city is not nearly as loud nor as fast. and I stop over at Central Park, and I'm enjoying the sounds of kids playing who are laughing a little bit louder than my earphones are, and the sunshine, and I feel almost human again. I'm from a small town in Illinois. You probably never even heard of it. I don't like big cities, and even though I have gotten used to them by now, I'm ready to be back in a small place, the land of Lincoln, my home state. And when I start a new family one day, that's where I plan on doing it. The same place Abraham Lincoln was born. My first question I ask any girl I've ever gone on a date with is whether or not they're a city girl or a small town girl. I haven't met the right one yet, but I'm hoping she comes along so we can go back to the basics of life. Thanks a lot. Your New York City buddy, Robert. Well, dear Robert, thanks for the letter. I hope you survived New York City. And I just had a thought occur to me while I was reading your letter. Just a thought. You might find the small town girl you are looking for if you go looking for her in a small town itself. Again, that's just a thought. Go get him, Tiger. Go get him. Alfonso Rivendera, Great Wood, Texas. I hope I said that name right. Rivendera, I think. Sean, I have a friend who's having a birthday, and he listens to your show. His name is Teddy Remington, like the gun brand. He doesn't listen to your show all the time, but I'm going to make sure he listens to this one if you mention his name. He likes your show. He's 72 years old. In case you were wondering, he's going to be 73. He's been like a father to me, and I'm only 30 years old, and I need a father. So thanks from two of your listeners in advance. Well, dear Alfonso, I sincerely hope you don't have to force Teddy to listen to this particular episode at gunpoint. Lord knows he has better things he could be doing out in his garage as a man his age, like separating the nuts and the bolts from their little Tupperware containers. Anyway, from everybody here tonight, Mr. Teddy Remington, from everybody here tonight, happy 73rd birthday! Penny Hillard, Tacoma, Washington. Tacoma, Washington. It's hard to live without somebody you love, Sean. My son left for college to get settled into his new place in Kansas, where he's going on a scholarship. He is a lifetime away from me, and it feels weird. It has always been just him and I hate being without him. It's like somebody cut off my arm. The house is quiet, and I don't have anybody to talk to. I call him on the phone sometimes, but I don't want to be one of those mothers. You know, the kind that always gets in their kids' business. I want him to enjoy being a college kid. I want him to have all the fun that goes with it. But it's tough. It's tough for parents who've made their kids such a huge part of their daily life that they sort of become their entire lives. I'm empty without him. Think about me if you would, because I'm really lonely here today. Don't feel sorry for me. I'll be all right. I know I will. It just takes some adjustments. Well, dear Penny, we are all thinking of you. All thinking of you. Don't be afraid to call your son. And if Penny's son happens to be listening right now, son, don't be afraid to call your mama. B.B. LaMontagne, Nassau County, Florida. Dear Sean, my husband got on a diet about a year ago. He was all fired up to lose a bunch of weight. And he did it. He made me feel so jealous that he was losing so much that I started to join him on his diet after his first few weeks doing it, because I will be darned if he will outdo me. So we both got into working out all the time and walking and running and eating right. And I'd listen to your podcast while I was on the treadmill, and I was jogging on a trail near a house, or when I was on the stationary bike. And we both started losing weight, but I have to be honest with you. He started losing a lot faster than I did. That little sucker. All my husband has to do is cut out bread and he starts getting skin and bones. Me, I have to cut out everything but water and salt if I want to lose weight. But together in our first year, Sean, I'm proud of this. We lost over 100 pounds combined together. 100 pounds, and we are like kids again. I can't even begin to tell you how good we feel and how much more we can do now that we're in better shape. We go for walks, we go for bike rides, we enjoy our vacations a lot more because we can get up and do. And it's all because he once had this idea after seeing a photograph of himself that he was not particularly happy about, and it made him want to start losing weight. The reason I'm writing you, Sean, is because I want to encourage any one of your listeners or readers that it is not as hard as you're making it out to be, whoever you are. If you want to start taking control of your health or your life, all you have to do is just do it. I don't mean to sound like a Nike commercial, Sean, but I want your people to know that they just have to keep moving. It's a life concept, I think. Eat food that's good for your body and keep moving. It will make you feel more alive than you've ever felt in your life. My husband and I are so much happier than we've ever been, and I didn't know if anybody who listens to your show might need to hear that. Keep up the great work and keep up the great exercise material. Love, BB and Dawn. Well, dear BB and Dawn, I am sure that you could whip my tail in an arm wrestling match or on a bike because it sounds like you are in very, very good shape. But to all the people tonight who have written to us, to every single one of them, and to all the people who have written us before who said that they like to listen to this podcast while working out, we have an important message for you. Out there in the real world, trying to break a sweat or build stamina or take control of their lives or beat Rocky in a national boxing tournament. Here's the message. 1 foot in front of the other. Friends, keep on going. Keep on trying. Keep on keeping on, because at the end of the rainbow is a gluten-free, sugar-free pound cake that tastes like sterilized mud. But this gluten-free, sugar-free, sterilized mud pound cake will make you live a long and happy life, and that is what I wish for you. A long and happy and healthy life with people you love around you. And that's letters from our listeners. Letters from our listeners. Let's have another tune here from Mile 12, everybody. Mile 12.
darling, don't forget to drop a line. I'll always thank you, my darling. Won't you think of me sometime? For I love you as no other, though you're going far away. Will you ever think, my darling, of our last goodbye today?
Well, hello, Texas. Hello, Texas. It's good to be here in the great state of Texas. I should have been born a Texan. There's something about Texans I just love. I was in a restaurant the other day, and I was with my wife. We were sitting at the counter, and on my left and on my right were Texans, big old men with white, fluffy hair that was, that came down into long lamb chop sideburns and handlebar mustaches, wearing plaid shirts tucked in. And one of the men had a big old cowboy hat, but like any self-respecting gentleman of our world, he would not be caught dead wearing that hat indoors. And there's something you got to respect about a man who won't wear his hat indoors. Too many times I go out in public today and I see kids and young men who are wearing ball caps or these little fancy-dancy, floosy-doosy fedoras indoors while they're eating. I can't think of anything that would grieve my mother more than looking at a young man wearing his hat inside. If you're listening to this and you're a young man, do the world a favor and take off your hat. But these Texans, this is what they do. They know how to take off their hats when they go indoors. They know how to say yes and no, and they know how to open the door for people who you would call either mother, miss, or ma'am. And they're good, solid men, solid, strong men. These two men sitting on either side of me was having a conversation right across from, across my wife and I. They were yelling at each other while my wife and I was trying to eat a breakfast. And for breakfast that we was eating, the breakfast that I was served was a 10-pound chicken fried steak. I mean, I've never seen a chicken fried steak that big before. It was covered in white pepper gravy. And I told my wife, we've got to get ourselves a summer house just south of Houston. If this is how they eat. The man on my right was just looking at me, and he talked across me to his friend. He said, hey, Roy, ain't you and your wife about to have an anniversary? He said, oh yeah, about to have our 50th. He said, really? Man, congratulations. How's your wife doing? I said, oh, pretty good. She good. He said, you got anything planned for your 50th? He said, well, for our 25th anniversary, we went all the way down to South Padre Island. He says, yeah, well, what about your 50th? He said, well, I'm thinking for our 50th anniversary, I'm going to drive back down there and pick her up. I do love it here. I love it here. It seems like it gets so hot at some parts when we were coming in our drive that y'all have erected fans out there in the pastures, I guess to cool it down. It's a weird thing to see all them fans on that flat landscape. It almost looks like an alien movie. Those turbines are not something familiar to me. Where I live, we don't have flat landscapes. Every few feet is interrupted by tall, long leaf pines. These big, tall, purple-looking pines have bark that has little cat faces that have been scratched into it from the turpentiners from old. These old turpentine plantations used to exist all around where my modern day house is. And sometimes if you go walking in the woods, you know, say you're chasing your dog all over God's creation, you'll find these trees, and I love to see them. You'll see these marks that were made by men long ago who used to harvest turpentine for. Well, primarily we would harvest turpentine back in Florida for the Navy. But when the Navy had stopped making their ships out of wood, they didn't need turpentine for the paint. They would just use metal instead. And so I understand that the greatest exporter of turpentine at that time was Vicks Vapor Rub. Vicks Vapor Rub. And this is the reason why Vicks Vapor Rub in my part of the world is an important element in your health and well-being. I mean, my mother would use Vicks Vapor Rub to cure everything from a sniffle to constipation. She would rub it all over your chest and make you lay in bed, and you would just be smelling this Vicks. And if there was something that was ailing you in the upper head instead of the chest, she would rub it up inside your nose, just like that. Because we support our own, we support Vicks Vapor Rub. We support our own where I come from, probably much like you do here. It's important that we support those that we love. And I will never forget, a few weeks ago I was in Fairhope, Alabama, and we was having a book signing. And a book signing is something completely foreign to me. Now, I've gone all over the place and I've talked and I've shaken hands afterwards and given hugs and stuff. But just a straight up book signing is a very unique event. It was a place downtown Fairhope, which is this little tiny town where the author of Forrest Gump used to work, and I guess he lived out in Point Clear, which ain't far from Fairhope. Point Clear is a place where they got this huge hotel called the Grand Hotel. People come from all over the nation to visit the Grand Hotel. I got to stay there, and I was so amazed by the quality and by the lavish extravagance in this hotel. I had to pick up the phone and call my cousin Lee. I said, "Cousin Lee, you will never guess where I am." He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm in the Grand Hotel in Point Clear, just outside Fairhope." He said, oh my God, is it true?" I said, "Is what true?" He said, "I heard they got towels and bathrobes so plush you can hardly get your suitcase closed." I said, "Yeah, it's true. It's true." And so then my wife took me across town all the way to Fairhope, Alabama to do a book signing. This was my first official book signing. I've never done anything like that before, and I'm not even sure I'll ever do anything like that again. Not because I don't enjoy it, but it's because I am not what you would call a writer. And most people who've got, I guess, a few books out would call themselves a writer, but I've never been comfortable with this title. I've never been comfortable with this title. I was a kid who made C's and D's and F's, and sometimes even below an F, which in my class was a frowny face, which was like a smiley face only worn by the devil. And this took a toll on my confidence. You can imagine getting things back, your paper passed back in class, and everybody around you has A's and B's, and yours has a big old frowny face on it. This will take a toll on a child's mind. I will never forget in the 4th grade, my mother tried to convince me that I was smart, that I had a gift for the written word. She said, "You're a writer. You've got to believe that about yourself." And I doubted her. Growing up, I thought my mother was full of beans. "I ain't no writer." I would tell her this, and she'd say, "Of course you are. Of course you are." Plus, I used to get in trouble a lot in school, too. I would get in trouble for the silliest things because I was a quiet child. A quiet child finds himself getting in trouble in strange ways, such as Matt Campbell, who would be in the desk next to me, and Fred Stepnowski on the desk to my right. They would be sitting always poised to cause a little bit of trouble. And I'll never forget when Matt Campbell brought to school a magazine. And this magazine was not a magazine with pictures of the apostles inside it. This was a magazine with glossy photos that you ain't supposed to have in the 4th grade. And so I saw him, what he was doing, and I told him to hush and keep that magazine away from my desk because I was busy. Because in that exact moment, I was listening to my teacher read aloud from the Holy Grail of all 4th grade books, Where the Red Fern Grows. This is my favorite childhood book. For many, many years, this was my absolute favorite book. And there's no better time in a 4th grader's life than to listen to his teacher read aloud. Today we got things like audio books recited by James Earl Jones and Charlton Heston and whoever else they've paid to recite these audio books with a low, deep voice and to give you a Shakespearean recitation of your favorite novel. No. Back in the 4th grade, we had Miss Everhart, who had a southern drawl that was thicker than K-Rose syrup, and she would read like a jar of Duke's mayonnaise sounds when it's being opened. I loved to listen to my 4th grade teacher read. I loved it. She was a good woman. She was easygoing, and she was reading this thing, and Matthew Campbell passed this magazine to my desk, and I passed it back to him. I said, I don't want your magazine, I'm trying to listen. And then he passed it back to me. And I said, I don't want it. I said, I'm trying to listen. And at that exact moment, Fred Stepnowski on the other side said, hey, Sean, pass it here. And I turned to look at him, and I handed him the magazine, not even making eye contact with him, and that's when my teacher stopped reading. She said, Sean Dietrich, do you have something you'd like to share with the class? In these kinds of situations, my policy during stressful red level situations has always been to pretend like you do not speak English. She looked at me and she said, Sean, please tell me, what is in your hand right now? And I said, no lo sé que maestra. She stood up from her seat and she walked toward me and she found that magazine, and that woman's 15-foot tall beehive hairdo turned into a 55-foot tall beehive hairdo. Next thing I know, I was in the principal's office. I was a kid who's sitting on the other side of his desk. I didn't have a whole lot of confidence in myself. And the principal did what most principals will do in order to help their students catch the gravity of this situation that they're in. He went to his file cabinet, he opened up the drawer, and he removed my file. Now, every child has a file. At least they did back in those days. And your file contains every documented case of every bad thing you have ever done, every bad grade you have ever made, every remark you ever made in class that you thought went past deaf ears. It's all there in your file. And I sat on the opposite side of his desk and I said, don't I get a phone call? He said, you have the right to remain silent, son. And he opened up my file and he read through some of my past incidents. And he shook his head with a grim face and he frowned at me. I got to see live and in person what a real frowny face looks like. And he said to me something I'll never forget. He said, Sean, I'm a little disappointed in you. If you don't pick up your grades, you might find yourself pushing a broom one day. Well, do you want to know what I was thinking in that exact moment? I was not thinking about how bad it felt to be in trouble, and I was not thinking about what he was telling me about pushing a broom one day. I was thinking about how upset I was that I was missing the out loud reading of Where the Red Fern Grows, my favorite book, being read freely to the ears of all God's children. And I was inside this ugly principal's office, handcuffed to a chair. My mother decided that she would help me through some of these times in my life, and she went to the store one day. And she, in order to help me improve my grades, we went to a bookstore, and she picked out Where the Red Fern Grows for me. And she gave it to me. She said, read this. Read this when you're at home and try to forget about all the things that happen in your other parts of your life. That's the gift of reading, Sean. Reading will take you away from reality for a little while. It'll help you see that life is a little bit bigger than just what's happening inside of school or just what's happening inside your head. And so I read that book a lot. I read it a whole lot. I read it more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. I read it a lot. I've never seen myself as much more than a broom pusher, as a matter of fact. Now, my principal was right when he said that about me. He was right about that. I was in a big New York City book convention a few months ago. Huge convention center right downtown, and I was wandering through this huge New York City book convention wearing a sport coat. This convention center was about the size of the Dominican Republic. You could get lost inside there and never find your way out. And I'm wandering around, and I'm looking at all these huge booths they got. They had these book signings from famous authors from all over the place. Famous authors were standing there, and there were these hordes of people, these lines, standing outside their book booths waiting to do a book signing. And there'd be these people holding up these huge cardboard signs that said, the line starts here. And these lines would grow bigger and bigger and bigger until they'd be all the way out the convention center into the street. Now I look at these authors from a distance. I think to myself, now that is an author. That is a writer. There's a man who knows what he's doing. I think to myself things like, my God, that man has a beautiful head of naturally wavy hair. I myself have the style of hair, I was gifted with hair that looks like I'm the love child between Eleanor Roosevelt and Bozo the Clown. These were authors. These were real writers. What was I doing there, I thought to myself. And it was just about that moment that this woman came walking up behind me. She must have been, I don't know, 80 years old or so. Old woman. She had stuff draped around her arm, book bags. She'd bought all sorts of stuff and gotten all the free books that you get at these conventions. And she looked at me with hard, serious eyes and a New York accent. She said, young man, where are the bathrooms? And I just looked at her and I said, ma'am? She said, well, you work here, don't you? Where are the bathrooms? And I looked at this woman who seemed to be in a threat level status of urinary emergency. And I thought, why not? And so I pretended to be very official. Very, very official. And I gave her my arm, and I walked her through this little convention center until I found the bathrooms, pretending like I knew where I was going. And I realized something very important about myself. I realized I come from farming people. I come from people who were steel workers. My daddy was a steel worker, my granddaddy was a steel worker, my great-great-granddaddy was one of the pioneers of the industry. All my uncles were steel workers. I come from men who wear denim, and they got beer fridges in their garage that are like the hub of the entire community. And they sit out there in their garage because there's nothing better than sitting in the garage. I come from trailer dwellers, people whose homes have more mileage on them than my 2003 truck. I come from people who are hard workers. I come from women who work the night shift. I come from a mother who did whatever she could to help us have whatever we needed after my father died. I come from these kinds of people. A writer? No. No, I don't see myself that way. I will forever see myself as a kind of custodian. And so there I was in Fairhope, Alabama, at the bookstore called Page and Palette, downtown. Very, very fancy little bookstore. People come from all over to have these book signings there. And there were people there to see me, more people than I thought would be. And I smiled at them and had to pretend that I was what they thought I was, some kind of author. And I signed my name in their book. And I felt like a fool when I did it. I mean, what kind of fool puts his name in a book? What kind of fool thinks that much of himself? And when it was all said and done, we'd signed hundreds of books, and I'd shaken and hugged hundreds of people's hands. It was my first book signing, and I thought I would feel really good about myself, but I wasn't feeling exactly good. I wasn't feeling bad, but I was feeling a little bit silly. And when everybody left, I went and sat down on this plywood stage. The building was empty. The lights were all off. The employees were all back in another, in the lounge somewhere. And I was all by myself. And I removed my sport coat. And I caught my breath. And I thought to myself, good Lord, I don't even know what I am. I don't know what I am. And that was the exact moment that I saw it way over there in the corner. There was this long stick, and it was attached to a push broom. I went over there and I got that push broom, and I started rolling it around that floor. And I felt a whole lot more like I belonged in that room all of a sudden. And while I was doing that, I was passing by these bookshelves in that store, and I looked on the bookshelf, on one of these bookshelves, and I saw something. And when I saw it, it sent an electric jolt through me. It was a little paper-bound book called Where the Red Fern Grows. And I stopped sweeping, and I picked up that book, and I opened it up, and I started reading to the first chapter, words that I kind of know by heart. My wife walked in. She said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm reading a book." She said, "How's it feel to have been at your first book signing?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I feel kind of silly, to tell you the truth." She said, "Well, I'm proud of you." I bought that book. I bought it for $14.95, and I took it back to our hotel, Point Clear. And I sat in my hotel room watching the water at night, and I read the entire daggone book. And when I closed it, I thought to myself, you know, it don't matter what people call you, and it don't matter what you call yourself. Because people see you one way and you see yourself the other, and it don't matter if you're right or they're right, or you're wrong or they're wrong. All that matters in this life is that you believe in something happier, that you believe that this is not the end, that you believe in something good, and be grateful that you're not sitting on the other side of the desk from a principal who has holding your file in his hands. Hey, thank you very much for having me this evening. It's been a wonderful pleasure. Thank you very much. Appreciate it very much.
Hey, thanks for listening to Sean of the South. I've been your host today, Sean Dietrich. Man, it's been a bona fide pleasure, if I do say so myself. This episode was brought to you by case knives, a tradition of my family dating back to my granddaddy, who once said the best way to cure idle hands was to build something, so keep your hands sharp with a case knife. And by Folklore Brewing Company, quite literally the best brew in Alabama. Visit Folklore Brewing and Meadery today. That music here behind me today was Mile 12 Bluegrass. Their sound is rooted in traditional bluegrass. Mile 12 surveys a broader landscape on their newest album, City on a Hill. All 5 band members bring their own influences and observations into this classic music. Go to their website, mile12bluegrass.com, and download their new album, City on a Hill, officially out now. You will not regret it. To find anything more about what I do, you can visit SeanOfTheSouthShow.com, and there you can find archived episodes dating all the way back to our very first episode to this episode, which you just heard, though I'm not sure why. You must have a terrible taste in podcasts. And while you're there, hope you take the time to drop me a line to me about your birthday announcements, wedding invitations, and potluck socials, and I do my best to read them over the air for my friends, because I love to do that sort of stuff for my friends. And speaking of friends, life is too short not to eat chicken fried steak. Adios.